Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursdays. It's the third Thursday of the month. It's December 16th, 2021. We're very glad you're with us today. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just put them in the Zoom chat window, or you can open up the comment field on Facebook. As we said, none of the comments you put in there will show up in the recording. And if you want to network with each other, you're welcome to put in your personal information, LinkedIn profile, what kind of jobs you're looking for, name of the company, and you never know who else is on the call you can network with and be able to maybe find a contact. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I founded Career DFW, a website to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started CareerUSA.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s, and I'll tell you about our upcoming program tomorrow at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You spend a lot of time on your resume, you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, some time networking. How much time do you practice your interviewing skills? You've got to be ready so when somebody calls you up to be able to answer those questions, or if you go in for a real interview, to be able to, answer those questions correctly. So if you'd like to have a free practice interview, totally free, you can reach out to me and I will get you the information on how you can do that. Well, today's speaker is Tony Beshara. He's the owner and president of Babich and Associates. He's been in the business for 47 years, I believe. Babich and Associates is one of the oldest and largest recruiting firms in the Southwest. If I know Texas, and I'm not sure about Southwest, but it's been around for a long, long time. Tony owns it. He has seen hundreds and hundreds of resumes. He sees hundreds of resumes every week. So this is a recording from a prior session that he gave us. And immediately after, any questions you have, immediately after the session, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Pleasure, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun. And we really appreciate what you do for the community down here and right now all over the country. So I've been doing this since 1973. Our company has been around since 1952. I sit and place people every day, just like all the rest of the recruiters have. I've placed over 11,000 people in the time that I've been doing this. And one of the biggest issues that most job seekers have is concerning their resume. And I make this presentation. We'll go over this presentation. It isn't very long, and then we'll answer questions for as long as everybody would really like. And the top 10 big mistakes of resume writing. There we go. The first mistake is that people overestimate the value of a resume. People have a tendency to think that this resume is going to be this mystical, magical tool that's going to get me a job. A resume is not going to get you a job. Hopefully, it's going to get you in the door. I've known people to spend a week writing their resume. I wrote a whole book on how to write a resume. I've written 4, we can go over all of those later, but that a resume is not a magical, mystical tool. Now you got to have one because, well, we got to have one, but don't overestimate the value of the thing. Hopefully it's going to get you in the door. It isn't going to get you hired. All you want it to do is get you in the door. That's what you're trying to do, is have it get you an interview. You're selling a date, not marriage. And all you want the resume to do is do just that. So don't over evaluate. Don't think that I've got to spend. I get people all the time that are asking me, well, if I did redo my resume and rewrite it and redo it, and I've tweaked it. I had one guy that sent me a resume the other day. He said, I've tweaked this 5 times. Nah, he's not getting interviews because the market's tight. Has nothing to do with his resume. So don't overestimate the value of it. It's not going to get you a job. Hopefully it's going to get you in the door. Keep in mind that the average resume doesn't even get read. It gets scanned for 10 seconds. What people scanning resumes look for are, who's this person worked for? How long did they work there? Do I understand what they do? And how successful were they at doing it? That's it. They scan it. I run ads all the time on LinkedIn. The other day, I got 189 resumes for one ad, 189. I was up till 10:30 one night and midnight the other one night looking at resumes. And if you think I'm sitting there reading every word of your resume, you're nuts. I'm not. I'm scanning it. I'm looking at, do I know the company? Do I understand what the person's done? How long were they there? Unfortunately, and we can discuss this if people want to, longevity sells. It's not fair because this job market and the world is a lot different than it was. When I got in this business in 1973, the average company in the United States was 59 years old. Somebody take a guess. In the average, in 2014, the average company in the United States was, guess how old? Somebody. 12 years old. So companies don't live very long. So there's a lot more turnover, but it's because of the companies. But people look at how long has a person been there, and then I look for, do I understand what they did, and then how well did they do it? And well, we'll get into what you need to write about that in a second. People underestimate the number of resumes an interviewing or hiring authority receives. On average, it's somewhere between 150 and 180. The odds of getting an interview, getting a job by posting your resume to a job that you see online is 1 out of 100 and, I'm sorry, 1 out of 350 to 400. Because what happens is 60% of the people that are looking at your resume aren't even the hiring authority. They're not even the person that's doing the hiring. It's not even the job that reports to them. They've given it to some minion or somebody in HR or somebody, and they say, look for this or that or that or this in a resume, and then get them to me. That person doesn't really know what they're looking at. They come up with maybe 20 or 25 that they parse out. The first 25 kind of win. Then they'll pick 6 or 7 of those and send them to the hiring authority. And if the hiring authority likes 3 or 4 of them, he'll interview those. So the vast majority of them never even get looked at. Now, I have to look at the 150, 160 that I get because I'm looking for a number of different things in the people that I'm looking for. But your hordes of resumes are coming at these people, and you got to realize that's what you're competing with. People overestimate the qualifications of the people screening and reading and passing their resume along. As I mentioned, 60% of the people that are looking at a resume don't really know what they're looking for as far as the quality of a person's background or experience or what they do. Somebody's telling them, look for somebody that has experience at A company, B company, C company, or D company, and that's all they're looking for. And they pull that out, and they don't know what it is. So you can't overestimate that the people that are scanning your resume may not even be qualified to know whether your resume is of value or not. There's nothing you can do about that. You just need to be aware that there's some challenges there, and that the people scanning this thing, and I get candidates all the time. They say, man, my resume is perfect for that job. And I sent it off to those Yahoos, and they didn't even give me a call. They didn't even give me a chance to come in and interview. Yeah, I get it. You're lucky if they even looked at it. And if they did, the person that looked at it may not even know what they're looking at. You have to spell it out for them and keep in mind that the nice thing about computers these days is that you can customize your resume and you can hit them up with exactly what they say they need, even though you're using a job description. But you got to realize that the folks are looking at it may not be all that qualified to even know what they're looking at. People write the wrong content in their resume. Here's a resume I got this morning. Here's the title of this candidate: Organizational Transformation Managing Director. Oh yeah, I've got 4 job orders like that. What the hell is an Organizational Transformation Managing Director? Now, I called the lady. She's actually brilliant. She's really good, but she should change that title to something that everybody understands. Or what we decided to do was, in parentheses, she needs to describe exactly what that job is so that, as I say, a high school senior could understand it. And what she does is she helps the clients of the firm she works for decide on what kind of technology they might need. But you'd never know that from that title. If your title isn't something that everybody can understand by just looking at it, change your darn title. I tell that to candidates all the time, and they say things like, well, that's not what my company calls me. I don't give a damn what your company calls you. Change your title so that somebody reading it understands. Account manager, account executive. I place primarily salespeople. Account executive, account manager, account director, VP of sales. Lots of people's VPs of sales are just salespeople. So change the whole thing. Just put sales, because that's what the client is looking for. And then in the content of your resume, put a job description that anybody can understand. Now, you got to remember that stories sell and numbers tell. So I always recommend that you got to have your resume full of numbers and bold those numbers. People like numbers. Their eyes are drawn to numbers. And I know people say, well, if I'm not in sales, I don't have numbers. Figure out the numbers. If you saved your company money, what percentage did you save? How much did you increase their savings? Something to do with numbers. Your resume is being compared to a whole bunch of others. And if your resume is filled with and loaded with numbers that make you stand out, then it's going to be picked up by somebody more likely than good written and verbal communication skills. If I see that again, well, I can't say that because I will see it again, but I want to throw up. That's about the silliest damn thing in the whole world. By the time you graduated from college, if you don't have good verbal and written communication skills, you probably didn't graduate. So put the content in there that somebody, you've got to communicate. This is why you should interview me, because this is what I'm going to be able to do for your company, because this is what I've done for other people's companies. Resume format is distracting. Oh my goodness. I get ones with columns down the side and they're colored in purple and they've got people's pictures on them and they've got their phone numbers down at the bottom of the page when nobody can see it. They've got squiggly lines. They've got flu stuff. They've got clouds. They've got all that kind of distracting junk on there. Don't do that. Simple word format. No columns, no colors, no distracting stuff. I got a resume this morning. The guy didn't even have his phone number on it. If I didn't know him from years past, you're competing with 150 other resumes. If I look at your resume and I can't call you, what do? I press delete and I go on to the next one. You may be the best qualified candidate in the world. Put your name, your email address, and your phone number up at the top of the resume. Your LinkedIn profile doesn't hurt to have that there. And make sure the numbers in your phone number are big enough for people to see on a screen. And don't make them light gray. You may think it's cute, but if I can't read it or I'm old and my eyesight isn't what it used to be, it's delete and on to the next one. So please keep that format simple. Um, Jeff has an example of a resume that he sent me the other day. Use that, exactly what he tells you to do. It's just perfect. Nice, simple, bold. You can see it, big enough letters that you can read it easily, and you know how to contact people real quickly. Because most of these employers, if they see what they like in 10 seconds, they're going to pick up the phone and call you. And that's exactly what you want them to do. But don't let that format get distracting. You may think it's cute. I'm working on a director of marketing job, and these people are sending me resumes with all this flu stuff on it. And they may think it's cute if you're marketing a car or whatever the dickens you're marketing, but it isn't cute when you're marketing yourself. So don't do that. Oh, cover letters. I One of the books I wrote on resumes, this was a number of years ago, but I did a survey of about 4,000 employers that we worked with, and I asked them all about cover letters. The biggest response we got was, I only read the cover letter if I like the resume. So my recommendation is, don't send cover letters. You're going to be emailing most of your resumes. It's not a bad idea to put in an email, here is why you should interview me, and give maybe 4 or 5 bullet points as to why you should be interviewed along with your resume. Sometimes people will look at those bullet points, won't even look at your resume. They'll just call you if you do them the right way, but 4 or 5 points. Don't make it more than that. We have a tendency, when we read on the screen, we don't read on the screen like we read on a book or something in our hand. Psychologically, when people read on the screen, they begin in the middle of the page. Their eyes go to the left, and then it goes up the left-hand margin, and then they look at the top. So that's why you want the most important stuff about in your resume in the very middle of that first page. Objectives, summary, all of that, get rid of that crap. Nobody cares about your objective. They care about their objective. Summary, nobody cares about a summary. I get summaries all the time where they summarize. I got one time. Now this was a number of years ago. The guy's summary was #1 salesperson in the country. So I call him up. I'm trying to talk to him. He was #1 salesperson in the country in the company he was with 10 years ago. Now who cares about that? I mean, nobody. So don't do that stuff. Start out with experience, who you worked for, the dates you were there, what you did, and make it real clear how successful you were. Sending a cover letter, I guess, if you want to waste your time doing it, but nobody cares about reading them, and 9 out of 10 times they don't get read anyhow. So um, most people sit there as they're writing their resume thinking that people are going to read this from top to bottom, every first page, second page, third page, fourth page. They're not. They're scanning whatever you got, and then they're deciding whether or not they're going to interview you. So the more efficient you are with what you say and how you say it, the better off you are. Cover letters are a waste of time. One size fits all resume. Thank God we now have computers. When I got in this business, we didn't even have fax machines. We mailed resumes to people. um, uh, but one size fits all. Change your resume up to, most people do this, but it's a mistake. They send, hey, just want to send resumes because they're email blasting resumes all over the place. And they got bots now that just send resumes to LinkedIn advertisements and things like that. Try to customize your resume as much as you possibly can. It's not hard to do. You find out what a company is looking for. I've even, we try to talk to a hiring authority to find out what they're looking for. You got to remember that most job descriptions are written by somebody that really doesn't have anything to do with the job. So it's better than nothing to try to match your resume to what the job description is, but you want to try to customize your resume to fit the job, the company, the size of the company, what they're asking somebody to do, but don't have one size fit all and just email blast the thing out because they're looking at too many resumes. Mistakes: length, objectives, summaries, dates, titles, and some of the basics. Length, I recommend no more than 2 pages, but yeah, I had a deal the other day with a candidate that the company didn't want to interview him because I placed technology salespeople. The complaint of the hiring authority was the guy doesn't seem to have any technical experience. Well, he cut off his resume. He said, I only went back 13 years. I spent 14 years before that as a developer. Well, to my client, that would have been really important. Once I told my client that he had 14 years of development experience, the guy interviewed him. So, that's a tough one. 2 pages, it used to be a rule of 2 pages. I'd say that's probably right. If you have to go to 3, that's probably okay. If you go much longer than that, again, remember they're scanning this, and the further back they go on your resume, the less interested they are. If you have important stuff in your career, like graduated from Yale. I've got a candidate that graduated from Yale. He puts it down at the bottom of the page. I tell him to put it at the top of the page. I had another candidate who graduated from the military academy. He was captain of their football team. And I mean, the guy had some stellar stuff. So I tell him to put that at the top of his resume because that kind of thing really sells. Graduating cum laude from Harvard or Yale or someplace like that, that kind of thing sells. I don't recommend objectives and summaries for the reasons that I mentioned before. Dates. I need to explain this. I get resumes at least once a day where people break down, and I hope I make this clear. They break down every job they've had in a company date by date. So they'll put down 2 years with one job, 2 years with another job, 3 years with another job below it. And it looks like they've had 3 jobs. Well, they did, but they were all with one company. So what you want to do is put in bold letters the company, and then over to the right at the very beginning, top of the resume, experience, the total number of years you were at the company. And then under that, the different jobs you've had, maybe not in bold, and then in parentheses, or you don't even need parentheses, the dates of those jobs, because you don't want to look like you've had 4 jobs in 4 years. You may want to look like you've had 4 jobs at the same company, but put the total number of years you were at each company to the right in bold so that people can see you were at one place for a long time. So watch out for your dates. Titles, I've pretty much explained. If the title isn't something everybody can understand, change it, okay? And then basic things like keeping it as brief as possible. Um, Try not to use I and have this long written format gosh, I got a resume, God bless him, from a guy the other day. It was 12 pages long, and it literally, and it started out with, my first job out of college was blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was just awful. So uh, keep to the basics. People want to know, where'd you work? What'd you do? How well did you do it? And do I understand it? And how is it going to relate to what I do? And then the 10th mistake is they have the wrong resume strategy. And the first strategy is send it off to every job that I see posted. You're much better off to try to find out who the hiring authority would be and get that resume in front of that hiring authority. So people say, well, I don't know who the hiring authority is. Oh, cut it out. If you're an accountant, you're probably going to be working for a controller. So you go online and you find out who's the controller. And you say, dear Mr. Controller, here's my resume. I understand you might be looking for an accountant, and I'm a good one, and here's why. If you're a salesperson, you're going to report to a sales manager, a vice president of sales, or whatever. If you work in the warehouse, you're probably going to report to the warehouse manager and all of that kind of thing. If you send your resume to the HR department, and I'm not saying they don't do a nice job, but they're so overwhelmed with all kinds of stuff, the chances of you getting any kind of audience with them isn't very good. So you got to try to get the strategy of your resume is to get that resume in front of the hiring authority, the person that's actually doing the hiring, so that they are looking at it. And then as you email them that, if you can follow up with a phone call, that's even better. I've known candidates to call a person, leave a voicemail. Dear Mr. Smith, I understand you might be looking for a good whatever you are. I'm sending you my resume. Make sure you look at it. I'm really a good employee, and you would really appreciate all I can do for you. So take that strategy of that resume and expand it other than just applying to online job postings, because the probability of getting a job that way just really isn't very great. So those are the the top 10 mistakes that people make. There are probably lots of others, but those are the top 10. You got to remember too that so much of this comes down to, we call it around here, judging pain on the part of a hiring authority. Sometimes people just don't have a lot of pain. And I've known companies to post uh, uh, jobs. They really aren't looking for anybody. They just want their competitor to think they are. Uh, these things are so crazy that you can't control that, and you don't know that. So you do the very best you can with it. But you got to realize there's a lot going on in the interviewing process that you don't know about. You think that there's a sense of urgency. There may not be a sense of urgency. You don't know that. How much pain an employer may or may not have, you don't know that. So there's not much you can do about that. And just do the best you can. And you got to just kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince.
All right, David had a question. For dates at a job, include just years or years and months?
Uh, it used to be that I have mixed emotions about that. Um, I'd put it this way: if your stints were short, I'd use years. If your stints were long, I wouldn't hesitate to use months. But uh, unfortunately, there is a bias against people that have had short stints, and I understand that. Most employers would like to hire people that have been in their last job for a long period of time, because psychologically they think, well, if they've been in that job for a long period of time, they'll be in my job for a long period of time. But 60 to 70% of the reasons that people aren't in long jobs really isn't the fault of the candidate. So do whatever you think is best. Whatever is going to make you look like you've been in that position the longest, use those dates is what I would recommend. I want to say again that that resume that Jeff has is really it's as perfect as you can get, and it's so simple it's almost stupid. So you know,
Right, yeah, keep it simple and important thing, right. All right, so Stephanie says, I'm a freelancer, so my jobs are temporary and sometimes short.
yes.
Do I include all of those? Do I write freelance as my company or what do I do?
Okay, absolutely. And put in parentheses contract work. I'm a freelancer. Here are the kind of projects that I work that I've worked on, and then describe the projects in one or two sentences. The kind of people that are looking at your resume know that you're a freelancer, know that you're a contractor. It's no real big deal. Now, the people that are looking for somebody for a permanent job, if they see contractor, 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 they're going to be a little concerned about that. I place a lot of IT recruiters, and the concern for a lot of companies and staffing firms, for instance, they're sometimes reluctant to hire a contractor that's been a contract recruiter because those people usually make more money than what a company will pay in a salary. So their fear is I hire this guy or gal, and then somebody comes along and pays them 50 cents an hour more, and they run off to that contract. So, but if your profession is freelance, let people know you're a freelancer and describe the projects because the kind of people that are going to be interested in you are going to want to know what kind of projects have you done, and that's going to enhance what you've done.
Somebody's asking, do we need areas of expertise on our resume? Should we list 6 or 8 bullet points, or 9 bullet points showing?
Yeah, that can't hurt, but I gotta tell you, the if they're so broad, they don't say anything. That's the problem you run into with a summary, and let alone objective. The summaries are usually so broad. You know, if you're the number one sales guy in the country, I want to know where were you that. So you want to put that point in in the body of where you worked. So if you worked at XYZ company and you were the number one sales guy in the country, that makes sense. When you just put that up there, usually people put it at the summary at the top, that has no context. It doesn't mean anything. It's like words of persistence, determined. Yeah, well, what's that mean? I wake up every morning. I eat breakfast. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Uh, and so when you're going to put those kind of things, um, I don't think they do any good for you unless you put them in the context of the particular job that applies to that particular trait.
Okay. So leading up, the next following up is, do I need a list of soft and hard skills? Should I have a section for soft and hard skills?
Well, uh, you know, uh, soft skills like hard skills like um, I program in COBOL shows you how old I am, right? That okay, that's a hard skill. I got it. Um, um, uh, those kind of skills, yes. Soft skills like good communication skills, good written and verbal communications, empathetic. Uh, I don't know, whatever kind of soft skills you want to think of. Eh, you know, I don't know that gets you anywhere, um, because it doesn't say anything.
All right. Okay. Next question. Somebody said, I've only worked abroad in France, so the companies are going to be unknown here. Does it
Yes.
mean I have zero chance for my resume being read and catch attention?
Oh, no, not at all. Just explain what the companies are and put in parentheses company in France, and what the company did. And, don't write your resume in French. But other than that, uh, just tell them what the companies did. That if you put, like I told this lady today, if she puts in parentheses what she did at that company and puts it in one sentence that anybody in the world like me could understand it, then you're all right. Look, there's 1.7 million businesses in the United States. Nobody knows what those companies do. And I get this all the time. Jeff and I have talked about this before, but when you put down your company, you got to tell people what your company does. And if you work for a big company like an Oracle or a American Airlines, you got to tell people what you did at that company. So on the one hand, if you work for a company that nobody ever heard of, put in parentheses, or not even in parentheses, put in a sentence right after the company, a company that does placement and recruitment in Dallas, Texas, because they never heard of Babich and Associates. So that's not, that's not that big a deal. And if all the places you've worked for have been in France, I would try to go on Google, or go, not only on Google, but maybe on LinkedIn, and try to find all the French companies that might have offices in your part of the world, because we do business with some French companies, and culture of the the culture at a French company is quite different than it is an American culture, and it's true with most foreign companies. And so, if you understand that culture, if you're an American, or I guess even if you're not, but if you understand that culture, that's going to mean a whole lot more to them than you might think it would.
Are most resumes read online? And
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
how many resumes do you print out and make a hard copy of?
Um, One out of, oh hell, I don't even know. If I see a resume I like, I call the person right away and I schedule an appointment.
Okay.
So, I used to keep a stack of about 100 of them here. And then when they got too big, I'd throw away the bottom half and keep the top half, and then I'd do it again. And that's what everybody else does too. So there, 99.99% of all of your resumes are going to be, and I have in my online program is the jobsearchsolution.com. It's a 60-hour program of how to find a job. It's got everything you can possibly imagine in it. And I go over in there what your resume needs to look like, because it's going to get read online. Just remember how I mentioned earlier how people read stuff online. They don't read it like they read something when they have it in their hand. Now, if they like what they see, they may very well print it out and make an appointment with you. And then when you come in, and by the way, always take 2 or 3 copies of your resume with you when you go on an interview.
Right.
I know that sounds like elementary stuff, but I had a candidate the other day that got into an interview, and there were 2 other people in the interview. He thought he was only going to be talking to one person, and he got in there and there were 2 others, and he did not have any copies of his resume with him. So they printed him out, they brought him in, but he looked like a doofus when he did that. You just take your resume with you. Come on.
Should we include hyperlinks in our resume, or just make the, like the LinkedIn thing should be a plain, take off the hyperlink?
Yeah, hyperlinks can kind of screw things up and get your resume. um, I've gotten them to where they've so many of them, they were a mess on the thing. And now if the hyperlink doesn't work, I get pissed and I want to move on to the next one. And it's not pissed, I get irritated. And so I don't recommend that. Look, if they're interested, 9 out of 10 times they're going to go to your LinkedIn profile anyhow. Oh, that's another thing that I didn't. When I wrote this 10 mistakes, I need to add an 11th mistake. Make sure your resume and your LinkedIn profile coincide with each other. I got to tell you that we've got 22 recruiters in our company, and at least 2 or 3 times a week, we get a candidate that gets eliminated from even being interviewed because his LinkedIn profile and his resume don't match. come on. I mean, come on.
Now, that doesn't mean you don't expect us to be, for modifying our resume every time that we apply for a job. You're talking more that our resume is going to have like 8 or 10 pages of information. Just make sure that whatever we talk about on our resume is in the LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, or what's worse is there's a job on LinkedIn profile that you don't have written on your resume, or you've got 3 jobs on your resume that you don't have on your LinkedIn profile, or you have on your resume that you graduated from Texas A&M University, and on your LinkedIn profile you have attended 3 years at Texas A&M University. Uh, I know you think, why would somebody do that? I don't know. I've been doing this for 47 years. There's a lot. I don't know why people do what they do, but you got to make sure. No, I'm talking about, Jeff, basic stuff that you wouldn't, leaving out jobs, leaving out stuff on one and not on the other. And when people see that, look, they're already looking for reasons of not to interview you, right? I mean, how are they going to interview 150 people anyhow? So they're already looking for reasons not to eliminate. I had a candidate the other day whose identity was stolen. And when his identity was stolen, he made his LinkedIn profile that was the first identity so stupid and plain that it was awful. He then created another LinkedIn profile with his name. His name was Ned, and then he went by Ned, and then he changed his LinkedIn profile to Edward. Well, if you go to Edward and his last name, you get this beautiful LinkedIn profile. But because on his resume and in the interviewing process, he said his name was Ned, my client looks up Ned and she sees this LinkedIn profile that's god awful. Well, so she writes me, what's with his LinkedIn profile? And so I had to find out what happened. So you just never know what, what people are going to see or do. So you got to have everything before you get to that point as perfect as you possibly can.
That's what leads to the next question here. What's the maximum number of years of work experience one should list on a resume? 5, 10, 15, 20? I mean,
Oh, my opinion of that's been pretty practical. They're going to find out. The reason people recommend that is they're going to say, well, they're going to know how old I am. They're going to know how old you are when you walk in the door. I mean, um, most authorities say go back 15 years. If the experience is applicable, maybe 20. I'm not real big on it one way or the other. I don't, I don't know that I have to go back and say that I graduated from high school in 1965 or something like that, and then give a explanation before that. I think what's most important is that you communicate the experience that's applicable to the job that you're applying to. And then after, most companies or most people that are reading resumes know that most people go back about 15, maybe 20 years.
I think, what we talk about in the other resume class when Carol's teaching it, she talks about that after you've listed maybe 10 or 15 years, that if it's something relevant and it's something that you may talk about in an interview, you should have a section called prior work experience. And
Yeah.
all you have to do is list the company names. You don't even have to list what exactly you did. You don't have to have any bullet points, but you just show that you've worked at other companies so that if you were to bring up a star story during an interview, that would then quantify, it'd be like, oh, okay, you did this at this company here.
Yeah. That's a real good point. And I've had candidates where at the bottom of their resume, the second page, they list the companies they worked for before, but they don't list much of what they do because it's not that applicable to the job we're applying for. And so that's probably pretty good,
Right.
Okay.
I've been a hybrid in my last 2 jobs. For example, I was an HR/accounts payable person. How should I title that?
HR/accounts payable. That pretty simple, you know, and then describe what you did and how you did it. And, you know, the people that are looking for somebody in HR are going to look at the HR stuff. The people that are looking at accounts payable are going to look at the accounts payable stuff, and, you know, because they're going to find that out anyhow.
Right. Okay, I think I know the answer to this next question, but I'll go ahead and ask it to you anyway. Is it fine to use mild colors to highlight job titles?
I guess if you like it, you know, but I'm not big on that. I'm big on bold and black and light and not bold and black, but, you know, it isn't going to make any bit of difference. That's the problem, you know.
Okay.
And the reason that I mentioned about colors before, sometimes colors come across as a screen. I got a resume the other day where the candidate's phone number was in light gray. And I had to strain and lay up to look and see. And the numbers were so small, I couldn't tell whether it was a 5 or a 6. Now, come on.
Make it easy. Would you recommend keeping your LinkedIn profile robust and your resume simple and specific to the job applying to? Yes, I'll tell you that right now, Courtney. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Tip number 11 was what? I forget what tip number 11 was.
Oh, tip number 11 was make sure your resume and your LinkedIn profile coincide.
Okay, we're sort of good. Just one of the things I talk about, and you know that I mention in the other classes we do with Carol on Thursdays, is that you should probably have like a master resume. Think about this: put together everything you've done since high school. Make a big resume with 8 or 10 bullet points each one, all the dates, addresses, who you report it to, and then when you see a job description, go and eliminate everything that doesn't directly relate to that job description. Because I think the most important thing Tony said is your resume doesn't get you a job. Your resume gets you a phone call. And if Tony sees your resume and goes, oh, I want to talk to this person, what's he going to do? He's going to immediately pick up the phone and call you. So that's, I think, the key you have to remember with resumes is that it's just it's a fishing hook, you know?
Yeah, and you never know why. I pulled out a resume of a guy the other day. He said, you're the only recruiter that called me, and I sent it to 50 of them. I said, well, I like your longevity. He had 10 years at a place that's very hard to work for. Now, had I not been here for the number of years I have, I wouldn't have known that that's a hard place to work for. But I liked that he had been there for 10 years. And the whole reason that I called him was when I go to present this guy, I can say, look, he spent 10 years at a hellhole. And if he could survive 10 years at a hellhole, he can survive any place. Well, so they look for different things to people buy for different, all kinds of crazy reasons. And I had a candidate the other day where she worked at the same place twice. She was hired back. That is a high compliment. Most people don't get hired back at a company unless they were a good employee, because if they weren't a good employee, they're not going to get hired back. And she worked at the same place twice. Well, that sells. I can sell that to somebody. So you're never really sure what that person on the other end of who's ever looking at this is gonna be interested in.
And that's why sometimes I've heard a good question when you get that phone call from Tony and he goes, and he's asking you about what you've done. I would go and ask Tony, so Tony, what was it about my resume that made you call me?
Yeah, exactly. And I will tell candidates when I call them, here's why I called you on your resume. Can you tell me a little more about this? Because I'm trying to get to what you do. There's a firm here in town that has a number of different divisions. And I got a resume the other day from a candidate that said he was a salesperson there, but he never really said what he sold. So I called him up and I said, I'm familiar with your company. What did you sell there? Well, he happened to sell something that I need. So, man, I brought the guy in. Well, if I hadn't known the company, unfortunately, so you got to be real specific. You just don't know who's going to buy and why they're going to buy.
Well, that is Tony's presentation. All right, we had a couple questions. Let me go back and find them here. What's the best way to handle job gaps?
Job what?
Excuse me?
Job what?
Job gaps. So
Gap.
got
Okay.
a long period of time between a couple jobs. Well, it sort of depends what the reason is. Number one, there was a gentleman who just landed from the Friday group who had been unemployed for 2 years. And he said, they never ever asked why I was unemployed for 2 years. They never asked about the gap. You need to be prepared. You need to be prepared with a story or something if they did ask. If you were taking care of a relative or a parent because they were sick and you had to give up your job and you were, doing that, I've actually seen on some resumes, people will list during that period that this is what they did. Now, maybe you put that on LinkedIn, you don't put it on your resume, but you've got to make sure that you, in that, as one bullet point underneath it, because what were you doing? I mean, you were handling medication, doctor's appointments, scheduling, maybe handling their finances and everything else. You could list those as here's some skills that I did. Once again, you're getting some keywords in your resume or a LinkedIn profile. But then the other thing is to make sure you have a second bullet point that says that this situation no longer requires me to do this or whatever. I mean, just to let people know that that was in the past and that's no longer going to be an issue. So, handling job gaps, I don't think is a big deal right now because employers are trying to find you. They need somebody to fill a role and they're looking for you to, as long as you can tell them what you can do to help them out, they don't care if you've got a gap, okay? But be prepared with a story. If you've got gaps, I mean, one of the things that I recommend is if you reach out to Mark McDonald at the Pick Crew, DallasPickCrew@gmail.com. One of Mark's specialties is to talk about gaps and why did you leave your last job or why were you let go from your last job. So if you feel like you're not really sure how to answer or whatever, talk with Mark. He's really good about talking about that.
Yeah, I would say if you have an extended gap, find things to fill some of that time up with. Start volunteering at charitable organizations, help out at church, do something. Don't just say, well, I was looking for a job the whole time. Well, like for instance, I get involved with helping to coach people that are doing job search, especially when we were doing the meetings face to face. So I wouldn't, for instance, I've been out of work since January. I was waiting for a contract job that I got hired for over 6 months. But I'm always doing some contract work. I prepare some tax returns. And you know what? If you're out past your unemployment, go get a bridge job. Most of them will give you a flexible schedule these days. And I'm kicking myself in the butt because I should have followed my own recommendation. But get you out of the house, it gets you circulating with other people. You never know where job leads come from. Don't worry about working at Home Depot or Lowe's or Costco or, every fast food restaurant in town has help wanted signs in it. Go do something. I'm actually at a point now where I picked up a little bit of contract work, but I was getting ready to go try to find something like that for myself. And we can all use the cash flow so we don't deplete our emergency fund or savings. But the mental side of it is just as important, in my opinion.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Kathy wrote, in order to customize your resume for the job, some of the bullet points may have to be modified to include keywords for a specific role. Is it okay for the bullets for each company that may vary slightly from the LinkedIn profile? I would say yes. I mean, if it's a good technical term, you want to make sure you include that in your bullet point on LinkedIn, because if you're seeing it on a job description, it's probably not the only company that's asking for that specific point. So maybe you list, if you change a word or two, you make sure you include the other word in parentheses or something, just so that that keyword is in there also, because you never know what they're going to be searching for on LinkedIn.
So
Go ahead.
I have input on that. So most of the input I've heard from people like Jeff and other moderators and actually people that are recruiters is some of the firms have a real thing for the dates matching up. So one of the things you need to make sure is that the dates in your LinkedIn profile match the dates on your resume and vice versa. There are companies that if they find any discrepancy, there are so many resumes coming to job postings now. Unfortunately, they look for reasons to eliminate you. So it might be a minor detail to you that you said January of 2019 as the end date for one job, but on your resume, but on LinkedIn it says February of 19. You think that's not that big a deal? They eliminate you for stuff like that. So make sure your dates line up for sure.
Right. And that's something that Tony talked about at the very end. All right. Susie says, I'm re-entering the workforce after many years of not working. I feel like a functional resume represents me better than a chronological resume, as if I was a new graduate. Opinion. Don't do it. Functional resumes, nobody wants to see a functional resume. Yes, it makes sense, and there'll be people out there that'll say, oh, that's what you should do, because that'll tell people who you are and what you can do. People want to see a chronological resume. So if you're just re-entering the workforce, you've got to have your story why why you were out of the workforce. If you're raising kids, that's fine. And maybe that's something you put in a cover letter just to say, if I'm currently re-entering the workforce, I'm looking to go back and whatever. But that's something that, a one sentence explanation in a cover letter would be a good idea. But do not use a functional resume, because anytime you send a functional resume in, either they're going to eliminate you, or if they sort of maybe like it, they're going to call you up and say, well, send me a chronological resume, because that's what everybody uses.
Yeah, if you had Tony on here live answering this question, he'd be screaming. he hates the functional resumes.
Right.
Okay, but you guys, some of these companies don't let you submit a cover letter. So I'm kind of stuck in that I'm not representing myself as well as I feel like I could. So I'm doing what is being suggested overall and trying to find champions and target companies rather than blindly applying. Is that my best route because I did stay home with my family for a long time?
Definitely. I mean, you want to find, you got to remember, when you fill out an online application, you have less than a 2% chance of them calling you up or getting a phone call, less than a 2% chance. But if you can network your way in and have somebody help pass a resume along or whatever, or get your name sent on, that goes up to maybe 50%, 40 to 50%. So, just applying online. I mean, I know there's a speaker out of the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and she says, don't waste your time filling out any online application. You're wasting your time. How can you, what you want to do is you want to network your way in and reach out to, look for people who would be a level above what you want to do and who maybe can help you, or an alumni, or somebody you used to work with. So, be sure to use those avenues. So that's really, really important.
So I've coached several women who came out of taking care of family members, raising kids and stuff like that. And the way you need to approach it is you need to list that as a job and then identify the things, the skills that you did, just like you would if your job was to run that family. You were the chief scheduler, you paid all the bills, you did the budgeting, you know, you planned everybody's day and made sure they got there on time. All those are skills that could be identified with a job position. So, you know, list it as a job and have your bullet points be all those skills that you took care of that really could identify with a similar thing you'd do at a job.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour. Let me just share a couple other things. If you'd like to connect with Tony, you can do so. Here is Tony's LinkedIn profile. Please remember that if you do connect with or reach out to anybody on LinkedIn, always send a personal note. There's two different kinds of buttons. There's white connect buttons and blue connect buttons. You always want to look for a blue connect button. A white connect button sends that generic invitation. And when I get those, I just ignore them. So, you know, if you want to connect with me or connect with Tony or anybody else, send it. Make sure you look for that blue connect button. If you'd like to get a sample, I did post the sample resume and the sample T cover letter. If you didn't download those, or if you're on a phone or something and you can't get it, if you want to send me an email to resume@careerdfw.org, resume@careerdfw.org, I will send you those documents. Just let me know what you're looking for so I can make sure I send the right documents, because I get emails from all the videos that we've posted over the last 2 years. Can you send me the documents from September 24th? And if they give me the detail, I can go back and find it. So just let me know what you're looking for. Career DFW and Career USA, we've been putting on training 4 days a week. Today was our 239th presentation of 2021. Tomorrow will be episode number 240. So coming up tomorrow at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, this is our last meeting of the year. And as we've done since 2010, we have Susan Holly, who's a senior tax advisor with H&R Block. If you do your own taxes, you may want to sit in and listen. She's going to talk about here's what 2021 wrap up, just things you need to think about for taxes, what you can deduct, what you can't deduct. And if you've got any specific questions, you're welcome to send those in and we'll get those answered. As long as they're not too specific, we will get those answered for you. This will not be recorded. So if you want to watch it, you do need to watch it live. H&R Block does not allow the recording to be out there because then it'd be like giving tax advice, but she is willing to allow us to watch it. So tomorrow after the Facebook event, I will be deleting it off of Facebook. We will not be having any workshops the week of Christmas and New Year's. So I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. We'll be back the first week of January. So as long as you're on our email distribution list, you will find out on January 2nd or 3rd, you'll find out what our programming is going to be that first week in January. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, you can go back and watch any of these lessons. Click on playlist, and then you'll see what pops up: effective resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Pick the one you want, and then at the very, very bottom, click on View Full Playlist, which is where you see that red arrow, and then up will come a list of by date, all the different titles and topics and dates that we've talked about. And you can go back and watch any one of the videos, and you can scroll down if you're looking for something else in particular. It'll take a couple hours for this particular lesson to be uploaded. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, please do so. Just send an email to Career USA, the +subscribe@groups.io. You won't get spam, but what you will get is the topic of the day, the title of the talk, and most importantly, the Zoom link of the day. That way you'll be able to open the email, click on the Zoom link, and join us when we get started. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. Everything I've done over the last 13.5 years has been as a volunteer. All of our speakers are volunteers. Career DFW survives on donations. Please consider making one when you land your next job. So thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning. If not, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2022.